This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
All right, this is the one I can feel it. Podcast. The first and the best Chiefs podcast. Real ones know the show is called Amateur Hour. The Amateur Hour podcast is now airing on KC Sports Network. Ryan Scott Hall and his Dirkness are back again. We've got football, friendship, and fun. All these shows, we're still number one, season 12. Oh, wow, here it comes. Welcome, my friends, to Amateur Hour podcast. Podcast. Man, I can't hit that note right. Podcast! Is that right? Well.
Don't worry, nobody's listening anyway.
What is this, amateur hour?
Yeah, I ain't no Superman businessman like you. You know, I'm just an
amateur,
I suppose.
Amateur Hour
Is what's happening.
Amateur Hour
Is what's happening.
Yeah, that's right, folks. The show is called Amateur Hour, and I'm Ryan Scott Hall, and joining me today, a prophet, is Dirkness.
Sup? Sorry, had the yips there. Little case of the yips.
Woo-hoo. A little spicy. Dirk, you really called that one. I mean, at the very least, you liked the probability of little wide right.
Yeah, I mean, he missed like a 27-yarder or something like to end the game last week, just at the very end. Not really important. I can't remember if that was the one he got. I think he got one blocked earlier, but then just missed the one at the end. And it's just like, dude, you do not want a kicker in the playoffs that does not have full confidence. And really, honestly, never even thought about it again until he was lining up for that kick. And I was like, oh, man, they're trotting bass out here. This has bad news written all over it. And you could kind of just smell it coming. Smell it.
Yeah, I in that moment, honestly, didn't really think he was going to miss. I wasn't even really entertaining the possibility of a miss. But we'll get to that. Let's start here. Dirk, you have been calling our Kansas City Chiefs a January team all season. Presumably, this is what you had in mind.
Yeah, I mean, really, everyone's going down the Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes route this week, and deservedly so, because Patrick Mahomes is fantastic, and it's a fun little rivalry the teams are a rivalry. I don't know if they're a rivalry. But my mind first actually went to a thing we did like a month ago that's really stuck with me because I really hated doing it. And that was when we criticized Andy Reid. The one time I truly got down on this team this year was after that Raiders game, and we kind of went after him because he had a bad season this year by most accounts, it would seem. It was the one game where it seemed like the offense just didn't have any answers. It wasn't like correctable mistakes, which I'd preach on all year that they're going to clean this up by January. It wasn't drops or penalties. There was turnovers, obviously, but it was beyond that. It was getting our ass kicked. And that was really hard to swallow. But as you said, and as I've said all season long, this is a January team. And if you don't believe me, ask the Buffalo Bills, who have no problem beating this team in October or even December. You got to ask them about Janu Andy. So Chiefs went from Christmas catastrophe where absolutely nothing worked to the biggest game of the season this week where absolutely everything worked. How about 7.68 yards per play? The highest output in Chiefs playoff history. And if you take away those 3 kneel downs at the end of the game because they had so few plays, that jumps up to 8.27 yards per play, which is where they were most of that game. That would be the 7th highest mark in NFL playoff history. They were so efficient, they only had 5 third downs the entire game. Only the 3rd time they've done that in franchise history in any regular season or postseason game. And the third downs that didn't work for the team, you had Watson drop one. You had Mahomes miss MVS in the end zone. He was open. Watson was open. You had a 3rd and 10 at the very end. Not so sure about that one. And a very unsuccessful kneel down to end the game. Those were their 3rd down conversions that did not work. Even the Mecole play, quote unquote, worked. They got from the 3 down to the 1. That play is a red zone staple that has had great success in Andy's tenure. Even if I did hate the play call in this particular situation because of what he's done earlier in this game and most of the season, really, but just don't trust him in that situation, and we're just running right at him. But that play did kind of work. So an offense that has now gone since the Christmas catastrophe, they've scored on 18 of their last 24 meaningful offensive drives. I took out the drive before halftime, one play. I took out the kneel downs at the end. I took out the 2 pointless drives at the end of the Miami game. 18 of their last 24 drives they have now scored. So this team knows they are a January team. We know they save their best stuff until then, even at the sacrifice of regular season success. It is a conscious decision by them, much like how they handle the receiver room. Because all season, I've had to listen to this idea that the Chiefs are wasting a year of Mahomes, and it's made me sick. Because no, they are not. This philosophy of theirs is batting 100%. This philosophy is on a 5-game playoff winning streak. I know it's not as fun to watch. I know it cost them some games this year. I get it. But maybe, just maybe, this is the best strategy for them to win in January. The belief is that Andy and Patrick can pick up these receivers enough to carry them while the rest of the team steps up. We'll get to the defense later on. You know what they've done. But you know who else was great on Sunday? The offensive line. Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver registered 0 pressures in this game. That's the first time Ed Oliver has done that in a game since Week 13, 2021. Or how about 128 yards on 17 carries from the running backs, over 7.5 yards per carry in this game. So I think people should respect this strategy a little bit more and give them a little more benefit of the doubt when it comes to trusting them. I'm sure they didn't expect MVS to be on a milk carton for 18 weeks, or Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney and Mecole Hardman to bop themselves over the head repeatedly like a damn Three Stooges routine. But in January, they will have it figured out. And I give massive credit to both Brett Veach and Andy Reid for seeing the plan all the way through. And that was my first thought from the game.
You know, I'm not too dissimilar from you just in terms of I feel like the theme of this season, and it really came to a head in this game against the Bills on Sunday, it's trust. It's all about trust. And I say that because, whether we had questions about the off-season process leading to this particular collection of wide receivers, whether we want to talk about the ability to, whether it's throughout the season or maybe even inside of a single game, to actually truly trust the defense to get it done. The Chiefs have been challenged, I think, at every turn in terms of this trust, at least with the fan base, right? Or those of us trying to cover the team in our own ways. Because let's be honest, man, the offense really hit the skids this season. 22.3 points per game is where they landed. They were 14th in the NFL in scoring in the regular season. Now, the last game only being 12 or 13 points or whatever against the Chargers, kind of a mail-it-in week, maybe skews it a little bit. But generally speaking, guys, we get it. 22 points a game is where the offense was at. In total scoring in the Patrick Mahomes era, the Chiefs have finished 1st, 2nd, 6th, 4th, 1st, and now 14th. It's a huge drop, right? Not something that Chiefs fans are used to seeing. How about explosive offense, right? The Chiefs going out, dropping 30 points. Here are the number of 30-point games each season in Mahomes' career, starting with his first season in 2018, 14 games over 30.
Whoa.
And then 10, 11, 9, and this year, 3.
Ooh.
3 times over 30 this whole season. I mean, an absolutely gigantic identity shift. All right. How about games under their 22-point mark that they hit for this year, right? They're averaging 22 points a game. How many games have the Chiefs had less than 22 in Mahomes' career? 2018, 0. 2019, 1. 2020, 2. And then 5, 3, and this year, 10. All right? Completely different looking offense. And you can say the same thing for this defense. It's no wonder that we have been so jarred by what this team looks like this year. The Chiefs defense really hit their stride this season. 17 points per game they allowed, second in the NFL. How about scoring defense in the Mahomes era? 24th, 10th, 17th, 18th, and now second. What a huge jump, by the way. Half the league they jumped from last season to this season. How about because the Chiefs scored 22 points a game this year? How about number of games where the defense has allowed 22 points in Mahomes' career? 13 in 2018. And then 9, 11, 11, and 3 this year. I mean, guys, we're talking about massive changes on both sides of the ball. And so I think that people lacking trust in this team because the process has literally taken us from August all the way until January for them to actualize themselves, figure out who they are, and start playing their best football. I mean, it's kind of unbelievable. I hate that we all kind of lost our patience in there with this team throughout the season at different points. But I don't know if I ever really lost faith. And that speaks to the infrastructure and ultimately the talent that Brett Veach has been able to put together, that Andy Reid has been coaching, and that Patrick Mahomes has showed us on the field. I'm curious, Dirk, if there was maybe a point in this game against Buffalo where you were starting to wane a little bit and that faith in the Chiefs are going to finish this day, like were you starting to pucker a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, the first half, when they're really just ramming it down our throats and running it, which I think was part of the strategy on defense. It did get tough. And then I guess when Josh made that throw, because I thought we took the early storm and then we responded and took the lead 13-10, and it was like 2 minutes before half. And I was like, man, this is a huge drive. If he does not score here, we got the lead. We might be able to score again before halftime, and then we got the ball coming out of halftime. So it was just such a huge drive. And he leads a great drive there. A lot of running from him, and then he really makes one of the best throws I've ever seen him make, where he's rolling left and hits. I can't remember. It's not Sherfield. It's the other guy, Shakir, in that front corner, giving up the first touchdown from Snead all season. And that was just like, oh man. So they're here to play, and they were here to play. It was back and forth. So I guess I was tight most of the game, but watching them do that was kind of just like. I look at where it's just like the idea is that you're going to be one of the top 3 to 5 teams in the league, and you got to get to these playoff games and you got to win the close ones. And, I knew the Chiefs would show up. I have all the faith. They're never going to do like a playoff no-show like, the Cowboys did earlier this year. They're not going to melt down in their season like the Eagles did and just not respond. Like their culture, where they have a guy like Travis Kelce who's foregoing the chance and adding to his personal legacy for a chance to get healthier, just a little bit healthier, and help this team out more in January. That speaks to like the culture that they provided, and just the resolve and toughness amongst everybody on the team. To come out in that second half, so the Bills have that drive, they're up 4. To come out in that second drive, first play, and you're taking a deep shot, which the Chiefs hasn't worked for them all year seemingly, especially not to MVS. And for that to be the first play that they come out of halftime with, and for it to work now, it's just that play like kind of represents everything. It's just like, look, I get that it didn't happen all season. It was ugly. We don't get why, but it's going to work in January. And here's our belief. Here's the proof of it. And boom, right down the sideline. Great little, almost kind of like a one-handed catch from MVS. And that was, I feel like that almost just like sparked the team again. Like, okay, here we go. MVS is in. Now we're moving on all cylinders. And it's just, we are not going to stop in this game. We're going to keep moving forward. And they've shown incredible resolve time and time again. So, it's the game where you're just watching it and you're back and forth with it. But no, I never lost faith in the game that we would lose that now.
We'll dive a little bit deeper into the game here. It's amateur hour, folks. It's Ryan Scott Hall. It's his Dirkness. The Chiefs are going to their 6th straight AFC Championship game. But first, let's take a little breather.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
Well, folks, Amateur Hour is brought to you by the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City. So you being sports fans, I'm sure you want to share your love of sports. Why don't you go ahead and coach some local youth? Our partners this year, the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City, need your help. Beyond the after-school programming that they offer, they also have leagues for baseball, softball, basketball, flag football, and more year-round sports. Just visit helpkckids.org and click on volunteer for more information.
Looking for a way to make a big impact in Kansas City? Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City need sponsors for their sports teams and leagues. Help local kids while promoting your business throughout the metro. Email giving@helpkckids.org for more information.
Dirk, I was kind of thinking about like some headlines coming out of this game, ways to kind of look at Chiefs Bills. I mean, Rat Tail Road Dog Mahomes has got to be involved in there somewhere.
I've always loved that he carries the rat tail, like the basically the trashiest hairstyle you can possibly have, and Mahomes has seemingly had it since he came into the league, and no one's ever been like, man, maybe just trim up the back like just a tiny little bit, like this little guy. And so it really comes out with the helmet because it's all you can see is just the rat tail sticking out the back. So yeah, I'm glad old Bobby Stroke handled that one up. That means he's speaking it to Patrick Mahomes. He's saying those words to Patrick Mahomes. He's like, what?
One of the other things that I thought, I just kind of, sticking with the theme there of trust. I think trusting the defense ended up kind of feeling like a big theme of this game for me. You mentioned the first half. I felt like they were getting gashed, particularly on the ground. I feel like I saw a stat during the game where, with plenty of the second quarter left, I think the Bills almost had the Chiefs like game by game average rushing yards allowed. They almost had 100 rushing with I think the Bills
mid second quarter.
I mean there was still plenty of time for them to. They probably got around what the Chiefs allow per game on the ground in the first half, and I don't know why Mike Pennell had to be doing, all by myself in karaoke. Why all of these nose tackles that the Chiefs have rotated through on the roster throughout this season can't seem to be active. Mike Pennell got signed to this roster like 3 weeks ago and was the only nose tackle active, whether it's, Keandre Coburn or Neil Farrell or Big Pooh, Isaiah Buggs. Like,
Pooh didn't make it? No Pooh out there?
None of those guys were even on the game day active roster. And so it was just Pennell. And I'm sitting here thinking, man, like, well, they lost Willie. Like, I don't know if he's necessarily a huge run player. They lost Mike Edwards in the first half. I don't know how much that's affecting it. It's got to just be like this defensive line. They're not doing this. They're not doing that. I heard Maddie mention, I think in the post game, that it seemed like they basically like changed their rush lanes for the second half. And that seemed to impact some things, but my God, man, that defense really buckled down in the fourth quarter, only allowing 7 points in the entire second half. But boy, the fourth quarter specifically, they were just on another level.
Well, so I think it was a decision that they made on defense to come out. They were going to eliminate the big plays. They're going to keep everything in front of them, and they're going to dare Josh Allen to stay patient for 60 minutes. He did a great job of it for 3 quarters. But then, honestly, I think the Chiefs had to come up, and they were just kind of like, okay, we cannot just allow them to run the ball anymore here. And so I think at around that third, fourth quarterback, when they started making stops, they kind of came up, and they forced some losses in the run game. But it also opened up a couple of deep shots because Josh Allen had that deep shot to the other guy, Sherfield, which was –
that was like a 46-yarder on a 3rd and 12, I think. And it seemed like it was kind of a drop, really. I mean, I think we were like in good coverage, but
a little bit. And it was kind of weird. I think it was kind of just like he was throwing it up there. And it was one of those, like, it's a 3rd and long. If it gets picked 50 yards down the field, not that big a deal. And it ended up making it to him a little bit underthrown. It seemed like, and he could have caught it, but didn't quite. And then the other bomb to Stephon Diggs, that's the exact play they were taking away all day. So it gets to the end, and it was like, okay, we got to press the issue here because we can't just, now we can't let them just move down the field 4 yards at a time here. Like, we have to bring it to them a little bit. So that was obviously a huge play. Was that Diggs drop? So it's kind of interesting because Josh Allen ends up completing 16 passes behind the line of scrimmage, which is shocking. That's tied for the most in any NFL game since 2018. He had 2 completions past the sticks. His 3rd longest completion on the day was 5 air yards. Like, it's shocking to see how it worked. And yet at the same time, they were driving down and scoring most of the time. So it's kind of that, we've talked about the offenses that have had success against the Chiefs. It's not the Dolphins style where you're hunting for, intermediate throws or deep throws and stuff like that. The Chiefs just gobble that up, and Spags, the corners are too good, and Spags' scheme is too good. That it's just not going to work. You have to move it down chunk at a time, like the Green Bay game, like the Raiders had some success doing it. And you really saw the Bills play into that, and it was working until the end. And then it kind of just got away from them a little bit, and all the way up to, we're watching this drive, and I've said this on here before, but it's the worst feeling in the world as a Chiefs fan now. The most agonizing feeling is if the other team is driving down to win the game at the end, and they're going to run out the clock. Like, if you watch that game now it's a little bit better. You trust the defense a little bit more now, so it was worse in years past. But it's like, now we have to trust the defense, and Mahomes, our boy, who can do no wrong, like, we trust him absolutely to come back and win this game if he has to, might not get another shot. And that is just like, like every single play on that last Bills drive is just like, it's every single yard matter, because like, we have to come up with a stop here, or at least let them score a touchdown quick enough that we have time left. Like, if they score that touchdown with no time left, which is clearly what they're going for, it's agony to watch. And I do think you saw Josh get a little bit greedy. That 2nd 9 play, everybody's flying around that, Chris Jones gets the pressure and he throws it deep instead of hitting Diggs. Or I thought the easiest route was him just scramble out right and run like he has all game. And he's getting another first down doing that. And then that's moving the clock and moving the chains again. And it gets real worrisome for a Chiefs fan. And then that 3rd and 9, which ends up kind of being the biggest play of the game, it's kind of a nothing play. Karlaftis gets the pressure. Omenihu comes by and keeps contained, and he has to throw it away, and that ends up being like their last real shot at it. So, I thought it was defensive strategy. I don't know if I liked it necessarily, because it took our strength as our corners, and it gave them the help. Like, it kept deep safeties underneath the corners when I'm not sure if they necessarily needed the help, and it let them kind of move down chunk at a time. But I did get the idea that they're like, we don't think Josh Allen cannot make a mistake, because the stat is Josh Allen is 17-0 when he doesn't turn the ball over. Now 17-1 when he doesn't turn the ball over. He tried on that fumble that Chimichurri almost picked up. Kincaid actually did a really good job of slapping that ball away, but actually did not turn the ball over. The first loss, I think, in his career. It might be like since like early in his career that he has lost without turning the ball over.
Yeah, dude, let's just look at the fourth quarter. All right. The fourth quarter was crazy. The Chiefs score a touchdown to take the lead in the first minute of the fourth quarter. It's like the second play of the fourth quarter.
It's the exact opposite of the 13 seconds game, where there's moderate scoring, and then at the end of the game, it's just like touchdown after touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. Mm-hmm. That's the last score of the game right there. That with 13 minutes left in the game, that's the final score, which is kind of a wild dichotomy from that game.
Right. So the Chiefs winning touchdown with like 13, 14 minutes left. I mean, inside the first minute, I believe, of the fourth quarter, they score that touchdown. The ensuing drive ends with the fake punt while the Chiefs only have 10 men on the field. And so the Chiefs take over after that ridiculous play. I mean, just please.
Is that a win for Dave Toub? Because his unit did make the stop. They looked unbelievably ready, albeit they only had 10 men on the field, which probably comes back on Toub.
Have you seen the Inside the NFL clip of Nick Bolton?
On that play?
Bolton is coming off the field after the third down and saying, watch the fake, watch the fake, watch the fake. There it is. It's coming. Watch the fake. He called it. I mean, he kept saying earmuffs, and that's got to be some kind of signal. But he said, watch the fake, earmuffs, watch the fake. It's coming.
Interesting.
I mean, yeah.
So it's a lot of people are comparing it to the Daniel Sorensen playoff stop, which was actually, wasn't that on Justin Reed? I just watched it today. It's Justin Reed.
It was. He tackled Justin Reed. Yeah.
That's kind of wild. But that was like Sorensen by himself. It was like a one-on-one tackle where they're just kind of racing to the edge. That was kind of just like Sorensen making a great play. This was the entire unit. As soon as it snapped, they are all shooting over, which you basically have to if you only have 10 men on the field to make the stop. But like, I singled out some guys. Dion Bush jumped on that right away. I think the other guys are Chenal, who ends up making the tackle, and Cochran. All of them just shooting over there and filling gaps so great on just a wild play call. Like, I couldn't believe that it was Hamlin. I couldn't believe that they called it. I was just like, the mind was spinning at that point. Like, whoa, what is going on here?
So after that play, the Chiefs take over at the Bills, like, let's call it 34. First play from scrimmage, Pacheco, 29-yarder. The Chiefs are now sitting at Buffalo's 3-yard line. They're up 3, and I'm sitting here thinking, oh my God, they're going to go up 10. Like, that building is going to be in so much trouble. The fans, if they're sitting there down 10 with, whatever it is, let's call it, like, at that point, probably 8 or 9 minutes left. I mean, night, right?
Still 12 minutes, but you get the 3 and out from them. You get the big play that goes your way, and then you get a 29-yard run going your way, and it just feels like, put this thing in, and we are, like, all the momentum's on our side. We are slamming this case closed right now.
And then our prophet, our local friendly neighborhood prophet, his Dirkness, gets his second of the 3 that he predicted. Mecole touch here on the end around. And Mecole, reaching for the goal line, loses control of the football. It goes through the end zone. One of the most hated rules in sports that I think is perfectly fine. It's pretty innocuous as far as I'm concerned. It happened to us in this game, and I was still just like, whatever. I don't really care.
Exactly. It's the ultimate test because it happened at the worst time possible, and I never once got mad at the rule. I got mad at Mecole, obviously. I got mad at Andy for giving him the ball. I got mad at lots of things. I never got mad at the rule, so the rule's fun. Yeah,
but, so you have the Mecole fumble, and I tell you what, folks, because Buffalo gets the ball at the 25 instead of, like, let's say we're fumbling at the goal line and they recover it and they're backed up, I'm really nervous about what might transpire. And this is the first, it's the second possession, right? His Dirkstradamusness. Yeah, I get it, Thomas. I got it. That's a YouTube only thing for you audio listeners. Look, the first play from scrimmage after the Mecole fumble is a handoff that loses 4 yards. An absolute stuff in the run game. On 2nd and 14, they get a little 2-yard completion to Shakir out to the edge, just gang tackling. The defense is all over it. And it's 3rd and 12, and Allen chucks it 45 yards downfield, and Trent Sherfield can't reel it in, and they punt. The Chiefs turn around and punt, and the next possession, the Bills take it slowly and methodically down the field and ultimately stall out and miss the field goal. Dude, the fourth quarter was very, very intense. And up until that point, Buffalo had punted 1 time. It seemed like they were moving the ball at will, particularly on the ground. And suddenly in the fourth quarter, it's not just that the defense tightens up but one guy in particular started to make some plays in the fourth quarter, and everybody was worried about him. We'll talk about him right after this break.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
Hey, folks, it is time to talk about DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL playoffs. They are bringing you an offer that's going to help make the playoffs electrifying. New customers can bet $5 on any game and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. If you download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now using the code KCSN, new customers can bet $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code KCSN. The crown is yours. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario, bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/football for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. So Dirk,
I'm here.
Really the guy that I felt like closed out this game for the Chiefs, somebody that everyone was circling really from the first snap of the ball. It's Chris Jones, man. The leader of our defense, the star, the all-pro, the big contract. He is the headline on that side of the ball. And he was playing, in my estimation, so poorly in the first three quarters that I'm seeing tweets from people that are like, Chris Jones, he better be sick. Is he hurt? Like, what is going on with this guy? And I don't know if it was just kind of like his love for Frank Clark. He was doing his Frank Clark impersonation and only wanted to show up on like the final, 2 drives. But he not only forces that fumble on Josh Allen that the Chiefs don't quite recover, but he tried to end the game there. And it was like 9 or 10 yards off the line of scrimmage. He's beelining across the field to the opposite hash to make that play. And on that final drive, the 2nd and 9, he ruined that play. He bull rushed Deion Dawkins right into Josh Allen as he's trying to release the ball. I don't know how much effect it has or what, but I mean, it honestly seemed like he ruined that play. And then you look at the 3rd and 9, and he basically does the same thing. I know that I think that Karlaftis ended up getting a little bit closer, but Chris Jones just absolutely forklifting a pretty decent starting left tackle right into Josh Allen's lap again, forcing him out to the sideline, running right. And man, it goes back to just trusting these guys to be able to buckle down. One thing that you mentioned earlier when you're talking about like
hold on real quick. Chris Jones, I think part of he had a pretty poor first half. I saw a handful of plays where his pass rush wasn't quite there. So I was kind of, I was angry tweeting about his effort. Like, come on, you got to give us more here. And it didn't help that the optics of him starting 2 of those 3 drives, I think, on the sideline with the coat on, where it's just like, is he hurt or what's going on here? And he just doesn't quite look engaged, which is a lot of, just body language experting from looking at a TV. It's not really, cogent analysis here. So it was good to see him really respond and come through with the big play, which was really kind of like his 2022 season, whereas him making plays every single fourth quarter down the stretch. That's what it reminded me of. And, you might not hear from him a lot all game, but you're going to hear from him on the game's biggest snaps. And that's what we got this week from Chris Jones. So a strong finish for him, and shout out for that.
And, he was on the field for about 80% of the snaps. It looks like 60 out of 77 plays. Every one of those 17 plays he wasn't on the field, it seemed like the camera was on him on the sideline. I mean, he really was. It was just a really bizarre performance. And then suddenly in the fourth quarter, I'm like, man, somebody light a fire under 95, right? And he woke up and he did exactly what he needed to do in terms of closing that game out for them. Something you mentioned about like the strategy, the Chiefs essentially tried to do the thing that everybody was doing against the Chiefs starting a couple years ago. You want them to do these long drives, hoping that they're going to end up making a mistake. I don't know how much of that. I mean, look, adjustments on the fly inside of games, tough to ever estimate exactly what's going on. But when you lose Mike Edwards on the second play of the game, and you suddenly have to put fourth round Chamari Connor, who is really more of a slot blitzer than anything else to this point in his career, effective, sure, but not a big time player. You got to put him in as a starting safety, likely playing at the back of your defense, a position that he may not have been in since college and may not have been in since even probably like his junior year. He was a box player that last year at Virginia Tech. And that guy goes out and is the highest graded defender in all of the games that were played in the divisional round, according to PFF. And I'm only using that PFF stat because it makes our guy sound good, right? Otherwise, I'm complaining about PFF, period. But I was really, really worried when Mike Edwards had to sit out the rest of the game. I'm sitting here thinking, after losing Brian Cook and now we lose Mike Edwards, we've got Chamari Connor and we've got Deion Bush to play safety. Like, am I living in a world right now where I want to see L'Jarius Sneed go play safety, even though he's the best corner in the NFL this year, but he's got the versatility to go do it? I mean, I thought they were in big trouble. And instead, Chamari Connor ends up being like one of the defensive players of the game. I mean, absolutely ready for the moment. You want to credit Brett Veach. Look no further than Chamari Connor's performance.
Yeah, I wonder if that kind of led to just like kind of the vanilla defense, because we didn't really get to see Spags get in his bag, although a lot of it was just the Bills running the ball nonstop. So it was kind of hard for Spags to get in there, but that's just kind of putting a rookie back there and maybe not trusting him in situations where you're bringing huge blitzes and he's the only man left. I wonder if that maybe led to a more conservative game plan for the first, 3 quarters of that game after Edwards goes down.
Some other things, just some takeaways from Bills Chiefs. Man, that Chiefs offense was just so clean.
I don't think we've mentioned Patrick Mahomes' name yet, have we?
I mean,
he's not bad,
right?
He's not bad.
They were so clean on offense, as you mentioned. Only 4 third downs. If you remove the kneel down, there's 5 technically on the stat sheet. If you remove,
which they've never had a game in franchise history with only 4 third downs. It would have been the first time in franchise history. If they just could have kneeled out the clock on second down, they would have broken a record there.
They had 27 points on 43 plays if you take the kneel downs out of it. Only 2 penalties. You get the Mecole fumble, but no interceptions from Mahomes. And actually, shout out to our boy Ron Kopp for this one. I see this stat. Mahomes, 0 turnover-worthy plays in his last 3 starts. These 3 starts where he hasn't thrown an interception. His first 3-game stretch with no turnover-worthy plays since 2018. I mean, pretty unreal performance from the offense. I mean, they only had the ball for 22 minutes or something. Just how efficient they were, whether it's yards per play or points per drive. My God, man. They were absolutely humming on the offensive side of the ball. And one thing that really, really jumps out about it, and this speaks to that we're simplifying things. Did you notice that only 4 players on the offense got more than 1 target in this game. 4 guys, by far the lowest all season. In the first 8 weeks of the year, and keep in mind that the Chiefs were 7-1 going into the bye. First 8 weeks of the season, they averaged 8 players. It's actually over 8. It's 8.25 players per game getting multiple targets. They haven't gone over 6 guys getting multiple targets in a game in the last 5 weeks. They have really, really whittled down that rotation. And I think that's helped them a lot, simplifying that offense and ultimately leading to the cleanest game that they have played all season against Buffalo in the biggest moment.
And really, that's kind of with Rashee Rice. I don't know if it ever even got reported, but he clearly got banged up when he caught that one and gets hit on his ribs. And you hardly kind of see him the rest of the game until he catches a big third down pass, kind of down in the red zone, and takes a shot right in the ribs again. And you can see him wincing in pain as he's doing it. But they had to do all of that with, a lot of their offensive work without Rashee Rice for a lot of that game at being at full strength. So that was another thing that they kind of lost one of their trusted receivers, and they kind of had to look down the line. With Patrick Mahomes, you talked about 0 turnover worthy plays in the last 3 games. That is something they desperately needed. We kind of said that all season where, they cannot have all these mistakes on offense where they're making penalties and having other guys fumble and drop passes and have Patrick Mahomes make a mistake. You can't have both of those. So they could put up with this mistake from Mecole Hardman, which ends up costing them 7 and a possession, because you don't also have Patrick Mahomes making a mistake. You have to have, you can't have both kind of thing. You can have one or the other, but I'm sorry, if they're going to make big mistakes like that, you need Mahomes to play perfect, and he basically has. So I think that's kind of been the difference in these last 3 weeks, and they've simplified things, and it's just been Patrick Mahomes going into God mode. So he had 3 deep completions over 20 yards for only the second time since 2022 started. It was kind of interesting because we were daring Buffalo to keep everything underneath and test their patience. And I think Buffalo was kind of daring the Chiefs to go over the top because we don't trust your weapons to beat us on the outside. So it's kind of an interesting yin and yang. And that's what kind of led to, we have this super high yards per play. They have a super low yards per play. So we're over 7.5 for the game. They were under 4.8 yards for the game. That's only happened 5 times in NFL playoff history. The scores in those games are 40-14 back in 1976, 62-7 when the Jaguars beat the Dolphins in Dan Marino's final game, 45-10 when the Patriots beat the Tim Tebow Broncos, and then earlier this playoffs when the Texans did it to the Browns. So that's kind of like just rarefied air where even though the Bills were having success on offense, they were just doing it at a much different rate than the Chiefs were. And it was kind of interesting to see them kind of dare the Chiefs have to work downfield to kind of overcome that. Like the Chiefs that have just been this high-powered offense for all these years, and then last year kind of shrank everything down and had a lot of success with it, with getting rid of Tyreek and changing the offense and everything. And now it's gotten to a point where their teams are daring them to go downfield. And for this week, they were able to do it.
Yeah, and there's 2 things that I think kind of speak to that. One, if you just look at the explosive plays, I know you mentioned the 3 passes, but I think they had something like, it was like close to 10, like 7 or 8 different 20-yard plays from the Chiefs offense. And I don't think the Bills had a single one. You've got it at 8. Yeah, man. But here's another little bit of context for those of you that haven't seen it. In this game, the Bills both rushed and passed for over 180 yards. They had 0 giveaways. They allowed 0 sacks. They had fewer than 30 penalty yards. They had more than 35 minutes time of possession. They had 5 separate 10 or more play drives. It's the first time any NFL team in the Super Bowl era has done all of that in the same game, regular or postseason. And they lost.
It's the only team to ever win or lose? The only team to ever do it?
Win or lose. The only team to ever register all of those things in the single game. It's pretty unbelievable, right? Like, I almost have a difficult time working through how the Chiefs won this game. But, when I go and I start to look and I say, okay, well, Mahomes was absolutely magnificent. You got classic Kelce in more than one way, both on and off the field, if we're talking about the pair of them. MVS, total redemption game, I guess. I mean, did the Chiefs have a drop? You mentioned Watson. Did he have a drop, his one target? I don't know. He only got targeted one time. He's the only guy that got targeted and didn't register a catch. But
it was kind of like, so Watson's on kind of an out. Mahomes is a little late on it and a little bit behind him. So it almost kind of ends up being like a back shoulder, and it kind of goes right over the defensive back's, hand/head. So it's kind of like distracted, but it does also hit him in the chest. So I don't know if it officially got counted as a drop, but it was was early on, and it was the first time, and it was just fuck. Here we go.
That was the play. Yeah, that's the play where Maddie was trying to call it a drop, and you said, well, drops are contagious, so this not a drop, all right? It's not officially not in the drop column. So, I mean, if we don't count it, then the Chiefs don't even have a drop in this game. I mean, all the things that they've been doing to themselves all year long, they all but eliminated, apart from, the Mecole putting the ball on the ground.
And a couple other weird things that they did, or maybe not weird, but interesting things. So they went heavy personnel at a lot of the game. Yeah. Blake Bell was in for it was 25 or 30% of the snaps, but I might say it's his season high. That was to take advantage of the Bills' lack of linebackers due to injury, which is smart. Force more of them onto the field, or I think what the Bills did in most situations was stay in nickel against our heavy sets, and that led to big time runs. Because the Chiefs were just heavier up front, and they were blocking defensive backs. Right. They switched up their scheme. They went away from zone runs, which was 61% of the runs on the season, down to only 29% in this game. They went with a power running scheme straight up the middle, which I think we've kind of been asking for time and time again. That stupid little Clyde sideways play. Get that shit out of here and run that shit right at the fucking gut. And they did that to great success. Jeff Schwartz was kind of pointing out they did a weird shift where the running back was acting like he's in pass protection, and he's kind of pointing out protections, and he's kind of shifting from side to side, which you usually only do if it's a pass play. And they were doing that to mask that it was a running play, and they were running off of that time and time again. So I thought that was a little interesting wrinkle. And then Travis Kelce, his route tree, he usually does a lot of crossing routes. And they were letting Rashee Rice do some of that. Maybe Watson even, but Travis Kelce's route tree, if you look at it, everything is starting outside and kind of go and moving more outside, nothing going over the middle. So I wonder if they kind of self-scouted themselves or something, like Kelce's, maybe that's a step slower and is not able to win that crossing route anymore. So let's just keep him here on this side and kind of work him over there. So I think you saw a lot of adjustments from the Chiefs, which goes to what we're saying. They're a January team. They're going to have this team ready in January with little wrinkles like this that just throws the defense into chaos, and they seem to all work with how effective the offense was out there.
I mean, look, I think that we've all been playing devil's advocate when it comes to Mecole Hardman for really, what is it now, 5 seasons. I will say though, in fairness to the Mecole situation, you mentioned in your opening monologue that it's a play that's been successful in the red zone. When they acquired him, everybody was like, this might solve the struggles that they're having in the red zone so far this season. Mecole's been a weapon. Oh my gosh, look at how much better they were in the red zone when he was on the team. Look at all these rushing touchdowns that he's got. And how about also going back to the guy that makes a mistake? Mecole had already put the ball on the ground, right? I mean, there's all these different reasons for them to go to him. So I'm not going to blame Andy in that situation. Not to mention the fact that, guys, if you really want to sweeten the pot, it was, again, for the second time, I will mention, his Dirkness predicting that Mecole was going to get 3 jet sweeps in this game.
Yeah, but I was wrong. He didn't get to the third one. I mean, what if in the last drive we bust out a Mecole Hardman jet sweep? I mean, can you imagine the reaction of fans everywhere? I didn't even watch the play out. I just threw something at the TV and broke it. I don't even know what happened.
On the 13 personnel stuff, I have really been wanting to see more 12 personnel, 2 tight ends out there, mostly just because, like, why put 3 receivers on the field? We don't have 3 receivers that we want to rub together. So I'm thinking 2 tight ends. Well, I was like, man, I want more Noah Gray. Give me more Noah Gray. Give me more Noah Gray. And in this game, maybe a little too much Noah Gray. At least in the passing game, I'm just saying. It got to a point where it was like, all right, another target for now. Oh, okay. He's not really that fun. He's not as fun as I thought. I mean, great. They were great on the ground in the 13 personnel, but Noah Gray in the pass game, not as much of a weapon as maybe I thought. I mean,
let's do some achievements. I got something.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we got to talk about Isiah Pacheco, at least for like a minute.
Okay, yeah. Let's do that. Yeah, go ahead.
The guy may not have a long career, but he is one of the.
I thought we're going to celebrate the man.
I am celebrating him.
No way we're giving him a second contract after all these carries.
He may not have a long career because of how violent a player he is. Guys, keep in mind, Pacheco had shoulder surgery. Shoulder surgery. I can't even say it 3 times fast. Shoulder surgery. He had shoulder surgery. What? 4 weeks ago? It's like it's been within the last month. I also had a concussion. He just plays a very old school style of football with how downhill a runner he is, but he's really seemed to start to become more of a running back, following his blocks, taking the right angles. We have seen him develop so much after the last 2 seasons. And man, I mean, he's one of the most important players on a team that has a chance to win back-to-back Super Bowls. I saw a stat from our buddy Craig Stout right here at KCSN that Pacheco has 5 games in his career where he's averaged over 6.5 yards per carry. 4 of those 5 are playoff games. I mean, this dude turns it up.
I think it was December or January. I think it was like a late season. They're not just playoff games.
I don't like the stat as much now.
We can edit this later. I mean
it's
anyway.
Fine that it's December and January. I thought they were all playoff games. Just let me misquote Craig. All right.
That's what sticks out to me is he was trying to fool you into making it seem like they're all playoff games.
Right.
But he doesn't have a bad playoff game on his resume
at all.
Really. He's got at least 76 yards rushing in every single game, except the Cincinnati game last year. He only had 26, but then he goes for 5 catches and 59 yards in that game. So he ends up with 85 total yards. So he's been at least 76 yards in every single playoff game that he's had so far. And this is another one of those things where we talked about that inconsistent running game that we've seen all season. In that Christmas catastrophe, couldn't run the ball for shit, and you saw what it did to the offense. And ever since then, he's been just ripping off successful game after successful game. I lost the stats I was just looking at. So he went for 110 before that game, and then since then he's gone for 130, and then 89, and then 97. So Pacheco right now, the running game in general is just moving the damn ball. Like the running game looks fantastic.
They said a lick about the offensive line, and I mean, I guess they deserve some credit in there too, whether it's the run blocking or the pass blocking. I mean, I felt like for 2 weeks in a row now, and don't get me wrong, both pass rushes, not a whole lot to write home about, but just been absolutely comfortable in the pocket 2 weeks in a row. And Mahomes only took off for 1 scramble this week. He had 2 last week and 1 this week. I mean, all 3 very effective. But it's not like we've got Mahomes running for his life the way that he did against the Raiders.
And shout out to Joe Thuney, who has got to be the least discussed great player in Chiefs history. I think we've probably said his name 2 or 3 times total in like the last however since as long as he's been on the team, 3 or 4 years now. Who even knows? He just kind of showed up and started playing fantastic, and we never mention him because he never fails at his job. He's just out there doing his job every single time. He was matched up one-on-one with Ed Oliver for most of this game, and he took him to school. He just worked him. Another shout out to Allegretti, who ends up opening the big hole on the final run of the game that gets the first down and ends it. Allegretti's a damn truck. Like, even if Thuney goes out, I like Allegretti, especially in the run game. So it could be another hit for the run game. I want to get to these achievements because I think the Mahomes-Kelce connection is, I think it's probably the biggest career achievement for this team yet. The Chiefs are on their way towards a lot of greatness, and Travis Kelce by himself, obviously, but them having the most career pass and receiving touchdowns together, it's as a duo, that's a big deal. And I was kind of getting nervous, they're definitely going to pass it. But then you're talking about Kelce retiring. Kelce's really slowing down. Touchdowns aren't guaranteed, and he's still one behind. What if, we lose to the Bills and he doesn't score, and then that's the end. So I thought it was really cool that he got the 2 touchdowns in this game. And they put themselves at number 1 in the record books. That one goes on forever. Passing, Brady and Gronk, who played at least 3 or 4 more seasons together than Kelce and Mahomes have, and then ahead of Montana and Rice, who is, goes down in lore as who you think of NFL playoff success, you think of Joe Montana and Jerry Rice. So passing them is totally awesome. Kelce now just career playoff achievements: 6 catches behind Rice, 4 touchdowns behind Rice, and 551 yards. He could get the catches next week. Maybe he could get the touchdowns next week. Probably won't get a 551 yards next week. And then another one, everyone knows 6 straight AFC championships, but 5 straight seasons now with 2 or more playoff wins, which they already had the record at 4. Nobody else has done it 4 years in a row. The Chiefs have now done it 5 years in a row. And a little side note on that the Lions just did that for the first time since 1957. The first time winning 2 playoff games in any season since 1957, and we just did it 5 times in a row. And so that's just want to run down the achievements of this team and what they've gotten to after Sunday's win.
I also saw another Kelce one for you. He has 14 playoff games with 75 or more receiving yards. Number 1 all time. Jerry Rice now second behind Kelce with the most 75 yards or more in a playoff game.
There's nothing you can say that Travis Kelce isn't the best tight end of all time. I mean, what are you going to say? Gronkowski has 1 or 2 more rings. We're going to do tight end rings to decide the greatest. I'm sorry, Travis Kelce is just the best tight end that's ever lived. That's all there is.
And
he looks refreshed. He looked a little quicker out there, didn't he? Maybe it's because AJ Klein is covering him, and Billy Pesto tells me AJ Klein was the reason he didn't have confidence going into the game. But so maybe that made him look quicker in itself. But he looked good out there, and his game face before the game too. He was fucking pumped. He was ready.
The only time that I have ever seen Travis Kelce look anything less than one of the coolest, most confident people on the planet. When he is second to Mahomes, it's so great. I'm sitting there watching.
Oh, when he's over his shoulder, in the locker room? Oh, my God.
Of the post game in the locker room. And Mahomes says something they asked for it and they got what they asked for. We're not done yet. Da, 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 da. All right. Whatever it is, Chiefs on 3, 1, 2, 3 Chiefs. And Kelce's turn it up a notch. And it just, I cannot remember the reference that I want to make. But it's you don't score until you score. And then the little buddy next to him, yeah, until you score. It just feels like Kelce's kind of the sidekick to Mahomes when Mahomes is being that vocal leader.
Yeah.
It happened before the game too. Mahomes has got everybody huddled around him. He says something, and Travis is just yeah, just backing him up
in their ass. Yeah.
But God, what a special player. And I mean, I tell you what, I haven't necessarily lost patience with the Chiefs throughout this season. A question I asked you earlier, but I really was with Kelce for a minute there, man. I mean, I was essentially telling anybody that would listen, Travis is going to retire. And he came out and obviously said unequivocally that he's not going to. He loves the game. There isn't.
Yeah, in your ass, Ryan.
Yeah, right. Suck it, me. I do think the money is probably a big draw for him. I know it hasn't been throughout his career, but he's got 30-something million coming over the next 2 seasons, and he's in this machine of an organization that it would be kind of silly for him to step away, because he can go out and continue to be a decent weapon for them, even as he has slowed down. I heard an interesting explanation, or at least like another player's perspective, listening to Mina Kimes and Dominique Foxworth this afternoon. And Foxworth said, if we're talking about like Madden ratings, I think on the Chiefs, Kelce is like an 85 at this stage in his career, but he would be a 75 on any other team because he doesn't have that like mind meld with Mahomes and the experience with Andy Reid. And I mean, 85 feels really low. Can we just make 87? 87 might be a little bit better because it's Travis's number. Either way, I did find that kind of interesting. Should we talk about this Ravens game? I mean, my God.
I think so. Did you want to
anything else? I will. You know what? I guess if we're just trying to do a little housekeeping on the Bills game, I saw early that you said it looks like another Joshua Williams game. It was a Jalen Watson game, my friend. It proved to be a Jalen Watson game in the snap counts. He ended up making that great play down the field. He also got flagged once.
Well, he got hurt, didn't he? Didn't he get banged up?
In the game?
Hurt at one point.
Oh, I don't know. He played more snaps than Joshua Williams by a significant margin. And I at least remember the play down the field. The guy, his ability to carry receivers down the field, despite the fact that he is not fast.
Perfect.
Man, he's excellent.
And they almost like wanted to call it a drop, but it's like he was right on him and had like an arm kind of on his other arm, so he couldn't get it up. So all the receiver could do was throw up his left arm. That's a very low probability catch. That was extremely good coverage from Jalen Watson, who continues to be a stud. I thought Joshua Williams got banged up in the game, and I thought Willie Gay did too. Not 100% sure of that, but I almost kind of thought both injuries kind of benefited the Chiefs a little bit because it kind of put Bolton and Tranquil out there together, and then it brought in Jalen Watson for Joshua Williams. Like I don't want to see that happen, but I thought those kind of both accidentally benefited the Chiefs defense.
I definitely thought the Chiefs kind of being forced into Bolton and Tranquil together was good, advantageous for them. Not that I don't want to watch Willie Gay play football in these last few games, presumably of his Chiefs career. But that was interesting. It looked like they shifted Leo into the spy role after Willie Gay left the field. So that was kind of interesting.
I don't know how much he did it, but he didn't do a great job because Josh Allen was taking off and running whenever he wanted. And I don't know how you prevent it because that dude is fucking huge and fast. Like every time he ran, it was just like, all right, here's 8 yards. He's just going to, even if he doesn't get there with his, right away, he's going to bowl over someone and get there. That guy's an animal.
I do think maybe it's like some of the videos, maybe it's the like downhill running. I feel like Clyde has become likable. Like he's almost like a talisman.
Like he's like a little spark plug now instead of like the main guy. He's like comes in for like the big play. Yeah, it's a much better role for him. Not what you want to spend a first round pick on, but a much better role and much more like. I mean, we were like at the end of last year, nobody could be more done with Clyde. It was like he didn't play. He was the third running back. He didn't have any role whatsoever. He didn't show up at the parade, and now it's like he's kind of likable, and all his teammates seem to like him.
Yeah, I did think that was interesting. I guess last thing, it just at least worth a mention. Part of me, very small part of me, because I am relishing every single one of these postseason runs, but small part of me actually feels bad for Bills fans, man. A tortured fan base that lost 4 straight Super Bowls in the early 90s. For those of you that weren't around, including a field goal miss by Scott Norwood that went wide right that would have given them a Super Bowl ring. And now in this modern era with a guy like Josh Allen, who is one of the most difficult players in the NFL to defend against, they actually traded the pick that let the Chiefs get the guy who has now ended their season 3 out of the last 4 years. I mean, God, man, like when we've been there, all right? Like the Chiefs have maybe not that specific position, but all of the postseason heartbreak, finding new ways to lose that just seem impossible. Josh Allen, against the Chiefs in the 13 seconds game was perfect. I mean, I don't think you could ask more from him, and they lost. And we see this game that the offense does all these different things that in combination, no team, regular season or postseason, has ever done before. And the Bills find somehow a way to lose. They don't turn the ball over. They're hardly penalized. They're not sacked. And they can't get over the hump. And now you're starting there grasping at straws thinking like, do we need to fire our coach? You know, like, do we need to blow up this roster and start to build over from scratch? And they're like third best team in the AFC, but they can't get past Mahomes. And they gave him to us. I mean, it's got to be absolutely brutal, man. And for all the years that we struggled through these playoff losses, my heart does go out to them a little bit. But, you know, it's a little bit easier to cheer for a team like the Lions just because they're in another conference, you know. But when it's, you know, Bills, Browns, Vikings, like all those tortured fan bases, we've kind of thought of them as brethren. And the Bills are like right there in the middle of it. And they just have such a direct tie to the Chiefs that it's like, sorry, man, like you might just end up being Warren Moon. You put up incredible stats your whole career, but you just can't get there because of who you're playing around.
Bills fans definitely are brethren. I would try my best to cheer for them if we lost to them. It might be tough. But I would say it's definitely a rivalry. I think the Mahomes versus Allen, Brady versus Manning comparisons are a little out of whack, especially now. I don't think you can go down that route anymore, really. But the Chiefs and Bills is definitely a rivalry, I think. I know they haven't beat us in the playoffs, but they beat us in the regular season every time. And they kept showing those stats during the game where it was like, they showed the total points from the 7 games they've played each other, and it was dead even. And they also showed the total yards at some point, like earlier mid fourth quarter. That was completely even. Like it was just like these are two teams that are completely even, and it's you know, the Chiefs keep pulling out of the end. It's almost like what the Bengals did to us. Like the Chiefs are right there in all these games. It's not like the Bengals do anything crazy. It was a really similar game actually where they're driving down because they were the kind of ones that, you know, popularized, or at least the first that I saw that really agonized me, to score at the end of the game and run the entire clock out. Yeah. And that was just brutal to watch. And so they kind of finished that drive basically. And so that's how they beat the Chiefs. And it just comes down to, you know, a couple plays like that. So, you know, I do feel for the Bills fans, of course. They are in real tough shape now with the salary cap. They are way over. And it's, you know, like the Chargers are way over, but they have really easy answers. The Bills don't have a lot of easy answers because they went all in. They're paying Von Miller to give them nothing, and you can't cut him next year, and he's gonna get like $40 million. Josh Allen's contract hasn't even really hit yet. Like the meat of Josh Allen's contract hasn't hit. Like you almost have to do like a coaching change because I don't know what other moves they got in their holster to try and get over this hump. Like they need something, and it's not going to be like acquiring any of this talent because they don't have the means for it.
Yeah, and like the guy that seems like the biggest malcontent on their team, and Stephon Diggs, he's almost uncuttable, untradeable too. Really difficult position for them with his contract. And so then you have to start looking at like, I mean, they'll probably cut Trey White, I would think. I don't know how easy it is. I haven't looked at the contract, but he can't stay healthy. So he just ends up becoming a casualty because he's hardly been on the field. But, you know, then you look at this other part of the relationship between the Chiefs and Bills. The Chiefs traded up in front of Buffalo to get Trent McDuffie, and they've got Kyer Elam over there that has hardly been active for half his career. I mean, just one thing after another, man. The Chiefs are just kind of beating up on their little brother with Buffalo. Tough position for them, man. You got something on Diggs, it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, it's just him doing like the little bit off to Josh Allen after he drops a 60-yard bomb in his breadbasket, and doing that to Josh, it was kind of MVS-ish and just fucking loser behavior. I mean, you're going to sit there and make a big deal about staring at the graffiti and have this whole thing. It's going to be tough to swallow next year when he's wearing a Chiefs uniform, but I'm going to have to get over that lose energy from that play and just accept that, you know, he's a really good player and he's going to be, you know, taking a pay cut and coming here to KC. Look good. A few other things, just cleaning up, and then we're going to Chiefs Ravens. Huge fumble recovery by Justin Watson on Mecole's first fumble to save 3 points. It was a really tough recovery. I don't think he was the one that should have gotten it, but he did go up and get it, and it's It was a direct save of 3 points. Jason Kelce was awesome. We hardly mentioned him. I love the idea of them going up to the number one pop star in the world. Like, all right, let's show the number one pop star in the world. And it's just like this behemoth with just, oh my God, what did he do to Taylor Swift? Did he eat her? He was fantastic. He looked awesome jumping out of there.
Did you see the video of, I don't know who the guy is, but it's a black guy that's in the suite and he's leaning out the window and he says, Kylie said, get your ass back in here. And Jason's like, whoop, jumps back in. I saw another one that was a big zoom. He is inside, or no, I think it's actually the picture when he's hanging out the window and someone zoomed in on Kylie's face.
Yeah.
And she's got this look, and it's like somebody said, like, I know the look of a woman who loves an idiot. My wife gives it to me 3 times a week. I mean, it's just what fun are the Kelces, and really that whole experience. It's bananas to me that people want to complain about stuff like this. Like, look, seriously, if Taylor Swift weren't dating Travis Kelce, I don't think that Jason is at this game. It doesn't have.
I think he might go, but he's not showing on camera, or maybe like a quick cut kind of thing. But it's nothing like that.
And honestly, man, just like the fact that they're brothers and the Eagles are out of it, and he's out there like wearing a Travis Kelce shirt, wearing a Chiefs stocking cap, like he is fully on the let me cheer for Travis bandwagon and looks like his biggest fan out there. And I mean, but he's in the parking lot tailgating with the Bills fans and just making his way around. I mean, he is, whether the guy chooses to retire or not, I mean, kind of like Travis said, like he still has football left in him if he wants it. But this is a guy that seems like he could seamlessly transition into one of the most beloved personalities that's anywhere near football. And I mean, God, the just that picture of him, the really zoomed out picture of him when he's outside the window. And of course, art, but make it sports, just the perfect picture to go right alongside. I mean, just everything about it. What a fun aspect of this game to just keep going back to that suite. He never puts the shirt back on.
Yeah,
He's just sitting there chugging beers in the background silently.
It wasn't not a one-time thing. Just sitting in the back with the shirt off, just pounding me like, I lost. I threw it out to the crowd. I don't know where it is. Somebody else had a tweet. They asked him about his Super Bowl parade, and he drank like 23 beers or something. And they're like, and how drunk were you on a scale of 1 to 10? And he said 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
Last note on this game, most watched divisional round game of all time. Ratings came out today. Ratings were huge. Most watched divisional round game and most watched since last year's Super Bowl.
Schrager said something like, 56 million people were watching at its peak between like 9 and 9:15 or something like that. And I mean, that's a lot.
All right, let's do Chiefs Ravens. Let's try and do 10-15 minutes here.
Okay.
Just hang out. We're doing long. This is a playoff pod. We got our producer hanging on. Chiefs Ravens. Let's see. You want to start with Chiefs offense or Chiefs defense?
Start with Chiefs offense. I have something for Chiefs defense. I don't have a whole lot on like trying to attack that Ravens D.
So the Ravens defense, it's going to be much tougher sledding for the Chiefs offense this week. We are championing the Chiefs offense for playing really well, but to be fair, they have played 2 very beaten up defenses. The Ravens are not that. And I think this could be kind of like, I think if the Ravens end up winning, it'll be because like everyone kind of overlooked their defense. And that's just kind of been a really good unit all along. We've talked about the Chiefs, obviously, but I think most of the conversation nationally has been about how good the Browns defense was, when I think the Ravens defense was actually better for most of the season and doing it against good opponents. They lead the league in sacks. They have the lowest yards per attempt allowed in the passing game. Their second best red zone defense. Those are the stats that kind of stuck out to me. They have a defensive coordinator who's getting head coach interviews. Every single Ravens defensive coordinator that's ever lived is just like this excellent coach that's eventually going to become a head coach and probably flame out as a head coach. But man, are they great defensive coordinators. They just kind of breed them over there. Mm-hmm. One advantage that I found was Ravens 26th in yards per carry allowed. which is just below the Chiefs. That was kind of surprising to me. I know that's kind of been the bugaboo for the Chiefs defense, which we obviously saw last week. The Texans were not able to take advantage of this at all. They were not able to run the ball. Their running backs had 11 carries for 29 yards. So the Chiefs have to do a better job against the running defense like that, which I think they will. But that's just kind of what I'm seeing. The pass defense is really good. They got great players all over. Another team with great interior defensive line. What's his name? Matabuke or something?
Justin Matabuke. I'm hoping, fingers crossing, that he is the Chris Jones replacement this offseason. The contract year is undefeated. The man is going to get paid.
If you're not paying Chris Jones, you're not going to pay someone else similar money.
Oh, well, that's what I'm saying, though, is that if you have earmarked all this money for a defensive tackle, you can't lose a world beater on the defensive line and not try to replace him. And I don't think that, like, Felix stepping in the lineup next year is what cures everything for you. Matabuke is a guy.
A year off injury.
Well, look, if Chris Jones is determined to get, like, in that $30 million a year range, saving $6 million a year, putting Matabuke above every defensive tackle not named Chris Jones and Aaron Donald, that's two starters, if not more, that you're saving in money, and you're still getting an elite player on the interior. They're very different style players, but I think the Chiefs can still play at the top of that market. It honestly kind of reminds me of the 49ers going out and getting Javon Hargrave this past offseason. Didn't seem like they were going to be in the market for a guy like that, and suddenly they throw the biggest contract at him. I think it's a move that Veach might have in his pocket. Here's one thing to keep in mind about this Ravens defense. I didn't do these numbers on the Chiefs because they're probably similar. But Ravens defense, points per game allowed against good quarterbacks. Joe Burrow, this isn't necessarily good quarterback, and Deshaun Watson.
Browning.
But here we go. Burrow, Watson, Stafford, Tua, Kyler, Herbert, Purdy, and I guess Browning. 22.8 points per game allowed, which would rank 25th in scoring. How about the Ravens defense against bad quarterbacks?
Browning. They just put Browning in there as the good quarterback. Here's their stats against every team that they allowed points against.
Against the bad quarterbacks, C.J. Stroud in his first game, Gardner Minshew, Ryan Tannehill, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Kenny Pickett, Jared Goff, not too bad. Geno Smith, not too bad. Trevor, terrible year. Mason Rudolph, 9 points per game against that group of guys.
Trevor's in the bad one.
The Ravens basically allowed most of the good quarterbacks that they played. Again, the list is Burrow, Watson, Stafford, Tua, Kyler, Herbert, and Purdy. Allowed 22.8 points per game, which is basically what the Chiefs were scoring on offense this year. And now enter Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs offense, who are playing their best football. I think that the Ravens defense is very, very, very talented. When I started looking at their defensive backs, some of these guys, I don't know who they are, but my God, the pass deflections in their secondary, those guys are around the football. The pass rush, they lead the league in sacks, just a couple more than the Chiefs. It's Justin Matabuke and then a bunch of other guys. He's got 13, and I don't think they have anybody else with more than like 8. Kyle Hamilton is an all-pro safety. I have no idea how they're going to use him, but a second-year player that is just an absolute stud for them. They're an interesting group, man. I think that their defensive coordinator is one of the younger guys in the league. Came over from Michigan, Harbaugh trade there, and a really hot name to become a head coach. I think he's not even 40 years old yet, Mike McDonald.
Then you got Queen at inside linebacker. He's obviously really good. Kyle Van Noy and Jadeveon Clowney as the outside rushers. Kyle Van Noy kind of worries me because he seems like kind of a smart player, and those kind of the Bengals outside rushers kind of always give Mahomes problem because they kept the angle and didn't let him, get outside and escape when he's trying to scramble like that. So I feel like Van Noy is kind of one of those players that will, stay in his lane and keep containment like that. I got here Patrick Mahomes, 4 games against the Ravens in his career. 2018, 377 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. 2019, 374 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. 2020, 385 passing yards, 5 touchdowns. 2021, 343 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, which is the game he lost because the Ravens, they just went for 2. Is that it at the end? But then Clyde had the fumble. Is that how they got up by 1 point? They won by 1 point at the end. And then we were in field goal range and Clyde had the fumble. It's kind of the downturn of Clyde for everybody. But Mahomes has had very good success against the Ravens in his career, who usually have a really good defense. So it's interesting to see. But
well, you mentioned Patrick Queen, but not the much better and $100 million inside.
Yeah, I keep getting them confused. Keep thinking Queen's the good one. Although Queen's not bad, he's just kind of a guy, I guess.
Yeah, I mean he played at LSU and had been up and down and has playing his best football next to the second best linebacker in the NFL. Surprise. Did you see the tweet? If I have not seen a whole lot of Roquan Smith film in my life. He played for the Bears for a long time, so shocker, we're not watching them. But I saw somebody say that if Pacheco and Roquan Smith actually meet in the hole, that it might rip a hole in the space-time continuum or something. So he must be an absolute rocket at middle linebacker if he's playing that powerfully, and he and Pacheco might be squaring off. Man, when I think about the Chiefs defense, like I am not fearful of the Chiefs defense being able to, I think, contain that passing game for the Ravens. Just none of their receivers aside from Zay Flowers really scare me. And I don't see Zay Flowers doing a whole lot against the corners that the Chiefs are putting out there. And so then it really comes down to, okay, well, they've got 2 great tight ends, just like Buffalo did. Maybe they'll be able to get Mark Andrews up for this game. They held him out this week against Houston. Maybe the right decision for him, given how the game went. It was, though, wasn't it 17-10 entering the fourth quarter? And then the Ravens put up 17 in the fourth to go up 34-10?
I mean, it was 10-10 at half, and the Ravens scored right away. So I'm not sure when they took.
Yeah, I think it was 17-10 going into the fourth quarter, and then they just pulled away. The Texans really hurt themselves in that game. They could not run the ball at all. It seemed like they were in 2nd and 10 on practically every series. And then all the penalties, man. I mean, the false starts. I don't know if that Ravens stadium is notorious for being super loud. I mean, I'm sure they have a good crowd, but like, dude, they had like 5 false starts in the first half.
I was watching the Manning cast that had Patrick Mahomes on it. This was way back in, I don't know what it was, week 8 or something. But they kind of asked him like what stadiums he's had noise problems like that with. And his answer was Baltimore, which I thought was kind of interesting because you don't usually hear that. Like, I don't think they're like bad fans or anything, but you don't usually hear them amongst the top crowds. And also, I'm not sure, it must have been because 2020 we played there with no fans in the stands. I've been seeing some highlights of that, and it's kind of weird to see. So it must have been the 2021 season, I think, was the other, because I think the first 2 were both at home. So it must have been just that last year when they ended up winning. But he singled Baltimore out as like the loudest, hardest stadium that he's had to play in his career. So I thought that was kind of interesting. That just reminded me of that. So with the Chiefs defense, you kind of talked about the passing game. I think the strategy this week should be a 180 from this week against Josh. They kind of stayed back and dared them to stay patient and take away the big play. And Josh Allen will make a mistake. I am bringing everybody forward this week, and I want to shut down the run game. I want to do everything I can. Obviously, easier to say than it is to do, but everything I can to not let Lamar run it, and then make him throw the ball, especially outside to his receivers against the best cornerback tandem in the NFL. And if those guys are going to beat McDuffie and Snead one-on-one, then that's fine. I'm going to live with that, but I am not going to let Lamar Jackson just run the ball up and down the field like he did against the Texans. It's like they didn't have a plan to stop him running the ball at all, and I thought they just made things super easy for him. And so I think that there's this playoff pressure that's kind of on Lamar, and I think he got a sniff of it because 10-10 at halftime, but then they come out and score right away. So I don't think he was ever really under too much pressure. And I don't want to let him run because I think that's the easy answer when he is under pressure like that. Like running is comfortable for him, and that's what he's best at. So you want to make him do what he's least comfortable doing, which to me is passing. And that also plays into your strength with the corner. So I am trusting those corners one-on-one all day. I'm bringing everybody up towards the line of scrimmage. I'm blitzing him. Some numbers on Lamar against the Blitz, he took a few sacks right before halftime against the Texans. I think they adjusted in the second half and kind of had some success against the Blitz. But on the season, against no Blitz, he's at 7.1 yards per attempt and 38.3% total DVOA. I don't know. With a Blitz, he's at 5.7 yards per attempt and only 3.6% DVOA. So his numbers go down quite a bit when he's going against the Blitz. He will take sacks quite a bit because he's running around. It's less Mahomes who will scramble and get rid of the ball or pick up some yards. Lamar will take some sacks. So I think getting some sacks is important. I think I would be firing up the Spags bags. And I'm bringing blitzes at them all day, and I'm taking away what they're best at, which is the running game.
Well, and I know that Spags is pretty notorious for all of the exotic blitzes and everything. Were they bringing a lot of heat at Josh in this game?
No,
it felt like they were playing pretty straight up. I've been scrolling trying to look for the numbers. I can't find the blitz rate against.
Like I said, they were running the ball so much, and they weren't behind in the sticks, so there was never like a here's 3rd and 8 and let's dial it up until later in the game.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you got to earn the right to rush the passer, and they were running the ball so well that the Chiefs weren't in favorable positions to be able to do that against Buffalo. You would imagine that the Ravens are going to try to do the same thing, get it into 3rd and manageable, if not 3rd and short. And I would imagine that they're probably going to feel pretty good about that, given the way that at least 3 of the 4 quarters went in Chiefs Bills. I look at that blitz rate, and this is where I start to wonder, like, what is the best way to play against Mahomes? It does seem like the lack of blitz, we are going to drop as many guys into coverage as we can. This is usually the best way to try to make the Chiefs earn it, right? I mean, it's the way that we're going to try to keep everything in front of us, the way that the team's kind of caught up to the Chiefs offense. I did see a stat about the Ravens defense that they only blitz like 20% of the time. And really one of the things that their defensive coordinator is known for is what they call those simulated pressures. Like, we're going to show you a look, but you're not going to actually get it, and you don't know necessarily how this is going to work out. The one thing that scares me about that defense, it's not the talent so much as it's the fact that Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid have never played against him before. He's young, he's new. I mean, it's his first or second year in the NFL coming from Michigan. I think it's his second year with Baltimore. But in any case, they haven't faced that defense yet. That doesn't mean that there isn't plenty of tape for them to be able to study. But, I mean, you look at Buffalo, they had played them 6-7 weeks ago. The Chiefs were the first defense to be able to actually see the Joe Brady offense 2 times. So they were able to make some adjustments on that side of the ball. And offensively, being able to attack Sean McDermott. We've got such a rich history with the Bills. We play them twice a year practically. The Chiefs haven't played Baltimore since 2021. I mean, you rattled off those Mahomes games and like the numbers are great, but we haven't played them in 2 years. Yep. So, I mean, there's a lack of familiarity there that I think this might be kind of like a slow burn at the beginning. Both teams kind of trying to figure each other out. Might see a few punts to start the game potentially. Might see some punts, and then really get cooking in the second half. I don't know, man. I mean, I saw you tweet, and this is the DVOA numbers on the Ravens are so high because they blew out San Francisco. They blew out the Lions, and there's one other team in there that it was like 20-point win over a good team. And those numbers really boosted the DVOA. Not that they weren't good week to week, but I'm curious. The Dolphins. Thanks, Nick, for that. So Dolphins, Lions, and Niners all got absolutely crushed by this team. I believe you said that they are the best DVOA team since 1981. And like the list of all those teams, there's like one Super Bowl loser, one conference championship loser, and a bunch of teams that won the Super Bowl. They're in really rare territory as far as the DVOA stats are concerned. Do you think that this Ravens team is like as good as advertised? I don't know. Like what's the panic level or the fear level here? I know, Chiefs fans probably not really panicked, but you get the idea. How scared are you?
Well, I mean, not scared. I do think there's a chance that they are an all-time great team, because I mean, if Lamar is getting MVP and doing his thing, and then you have a legit league's #1 defense, it's kind of like if the Chiefs offense like didn't really take that dip last year or this year, and Mahomes is still at that MVP level with that defense. So they have both sides of the ball. The stat is that they have the highest weighted DVOA since 1981. Weighted just means that the end of the season is weighted more than the beginning part of the season. So it's kind of like how they're playing going into the playoffs or playing right now at this moment kind of thing. So since they had all those blowouts, that's what's pushed their DVOA so high. Yeah, it's an impressive list. It's all the best teams of all time that you'd think of. But one interesting thing, 2 of those blowouts are against NFC teams. And our buddy Rob brought this up about he kind of likes cross scouts and listens to Ravens podcasts to see what they're saying before games. And they talked about how, he can struggle against divisional teams because they see him multiple times a year. And it's kind of just like getting reps against them and understanding Lamar's speed. Whereas the Ravens have some record against the NFC where they're like, 19-1 in their last 20 games against the NFC or something. And the idea is that, they don't see him enough. And so they're just not used to playing him, not used to the speed, and they don't know what to do. And in 1 week, it's too tough to kind of game plan for that. Well, Chiefs have kind of seen him. I mean, we haven't played them since 2021, but we've seen Lamar. We've played against them, 3 or 4 times since Spagnuolo got here. So, a handful of players here, but Spagnuolo is comfortable with them. So it'll be interesting to see how that factors in. But it is like a thing, like first time playing Lamar, you really struggle. But divisional teams have the most success against them because they've seen him so much. So that's kind of an interesting factor here too.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't really know what to make of Lamar against the Blitz. I mean, if you look at last week, D'Amico Ryans was sending everything he had at him because he was outmanned. That Texans defense is probably missing like 3 or 4 starters just in terms of personnel that they don't have. And I'm not talking about injuries. I'm talking they're not a developed roster yet. 75% completions against the Blitz. He was 13 of 18 for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. He ate up the Blitz against the Texans. But it's no offense to D'Amico Ryans. It may not be designed as well, and he definitely doesn't have the tools that the Chiefs do to be able to be as effective when it comes to the Blitz. I worry about Lamar being able to skedaddle on out of there a little bit quicker than we can get to him. You talked about that speed. Not being used to his speed is scary, especially when last week there were a couple different plays. I'm trying to see Chiefs meet guys to the spot as they're running toward the sideline. And, Bolton can't quite get there a couple times against Cook. And look, James Cook, I'm sure you're fast. He's not as fast as Lamar. He's just not. So, I mean, they're a scary team, man. Anything specific in terms of a prediction as you look at this game?
Well, I mean, I'll definitely take the Chiefs, but I want to reharp the point. I want to see them put the pressure on Lamar, and I will be upset if we're doing this podcast next week and where it's like, man, we let Lamar run all over us. Like that's how the Ravens won the game. I will be upset if he throws all over us and we lose the game that way. I'll be fine with it because it's like, okay, I wanted to see him do that with the pressure on him in a playoff game where hasn't had much success in his career. That's what I want to see happen. I want to see them force him to do that. And if they do that and he comes through, I will be fine and I'll live with that for sure. But I don't want him to run all over us. I'm doing anything I can to stop that. But, Chiefs, I think it'll be low scoring. I love the unders in this game. I like both defenses. So, I mean, 20-17 or something like that.
Another road dog. Another old road dog Mahomes here. Pretty impeccable win and underdog on the road. I am with you. I don't want to lose because Lamar ran all over the place, right? I don't want to lose because Gus Edwards had 120 yards and 2 touchdowns either. I will say this though, man. I think that Spags is going to have to mix it up and do the either we're going to blitz you on practically every play in the first quarter, and then we're going to just slow it down and taper it down from there. Or first half is going to be all fire and second half is going to be absolutely nothing, so that Lamar is seeing ghosts thinking, where is he coming from? Where is he coming from? And he's not coming. There's something in there that Spags is going to have to cook up. But, man, I almost want to see them try to win with 4 and spy Lamar, have these guys play contain. I mean, it's can you be disciplined, I believe, is the question for most defenses against a player the caliber of Lamar Jackson. Can you do your job and just do exactly what you're asked? Don't try to play outside of yourself. Be one of 11. And I think that, I mean, it just seems like they have guys that do that don't try to play outside of themselves. There's nobody on that unit that's out there like trying to chase stats and accolades. And I think that, man, I think that defense really still feels like they got a point to prove. They've got a chip on their shoulder. They were overlooked, perhaps even by their own teammates. Like, we are not a defensive team. We're going to keep trying to figure out how to be an offensive team. We're going to constantly put you in bad spots. We're going to put the ball at risk. We're going to do all these different things. And now that they are playing in unison and everybody seems to understand that this is a defensive football team, I really think that we're going to see something special out of that unit on Sunday. And despite the fact that I think there are probably going to be a lot of people that are picking the Ravens because the Chiefs have had to beat Miami, beat Buffalo. You got a rested Ravens team coming off a pretty relatively coasty win against a rookie quarterback and a young team. There's a lot that points to the Ravens, but, man, why would I pick against the Chiefs? Are you kidding me? It's a Chiefs podcast. It's not going to happen. I'm not that stupid. I don't know how close it's going to be.
I'll blow out. Pick a blowout.
I mean,
40. Ryan Scott Hall says 40-10 Chiefs. Wow. Headline tomorrow.
I'll just say this. Who has Lamar beaten in the playoffs? Who has he beaten? It's a short list. It's only 2 teams.
Yeah.
He has 2 playoff wins in his career. And, some of that has to do with injury. He's got Tyler Huntley out there having to try to bring things home because he can't make it to the playoffs. But it'd be really interesting to see how this thing plays out. 2:00 on Sunday. CBS again, not NBC. Okay. Sorry about that last week, folks. Welcome to Amateur Hour. But we get Nance and Romo for the second straight week. And, oh, by the way, Dirk, we'll preview for you. They make it to the Super Bowl. It's also on CBS. We could have 3 straight weeks of Nance and Romo. Oh, my God.
I don't know, Jim.
I'd be nervous if I'm a Chiefs fan. My God, how many times are you going to say it, Tony? All right. Well, I got the Chiefs. Dirk's got the Chiefs. You guys have got the Chiefs. 6th straight AFC Championship game for the Kansas City Chiefs. My God, man. What a special time to be a Chiefs fan. I am Ryan Scott Hall. He's his Dirkness. This was your super-sized AFC Championship game preview. And as always, Justin Herbert is Philip Rivers.